Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Ken Sanginario on the line. He's a founder of Corporate Value Metrics. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to be here.
All right, Ken, so excited about today's topic. So really talking about scaling your brand, and we're, of course, going to talk more about corporate value metrics and get into exactly, how you're adding value to your clients and to the marketplace. But before we get started on that, we'll start this episode the way we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Ken, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Ken, what mission matters to you?
Well, Adam, at Corporate Value Metrics, our mission is to create value. That is our passion and purpose, and that applies to whether we're adding value or creating value for our clients, our colleagues, or our communities.
That's awesome, Ken, and love bringing mission-based executives and entrepreneurs on the line to share why they do what they do, like what excites them. So great to have you on. And just to get us kicked off, so tell us a little bit more about your background and really how you got started in business.
Sure. Well, in the middle of my career, I spent about 18 years turning around underperforming and distressed companies, many times taking over a company, having been engaged by a private equity firm or sometimes a bank workout group to develop and execute a turnaround strategy. And those engagements would typically last anywhere from 6 to 18 months full time, and then to sell or recapitalize the company on the back end after the company had been successfully turned around. And through those years, I learned a lot and learned a lot from various mentors and teachers and formal education and just in the field, on the ground experience about how to actually create value in a company, whether the company is underperforming or distressed, or whether it's a healthy company that could be much healthier and could create a lot more value than it is already creating. And so that's how I got started. And about 10 or 11 years ago now, I decided to take all of that knowledge, various knowledge bases that I learned, and to codify them into a process and a software platform that could leverage my knowledge and experience. And so it would allow, rather than me just creating value one client at a time, it would allow me to kind of propagate that knowledge and experience across a broad range of other business advisors, so we could touch thousands of companies instead of, dozens.
So we will go further into corporate value metrics, and I want to know more about the platform, but maybe just to start kind of at the beginning. So let's say that, there's some entrepreneurs right now that are listening to this that maybe haven't really, some businesses weren't created to necessarily sell them. A lot of times people will say, I'm creating this business, I'm in this for life, especially your first-time entrepreneur that has a business that, that's their baby, right? It's their first one. It's like,
right.
Well, how could I sell my child? No, right? They don't think about what's going to happen down the line necessarily, and they might have different interests, and there might be different partnerships or reasons to exit that business and move on to the next project, which we see happens time and time again. So what's some practical advice for those entrepreneurs that are maybe growing an existing business, or they're not they're not even necessarily planning on selling it right now, but what are some of the benefits of still going down that route of planning?
Well, that's a great question. We always advise companies to run your company as though you're never going to sell it. Run it at the highest level of quality and the highest performance that you possibly can. And if you do that, you will always be in a position to be able to entertain opportunities that might arise, whether they're joint ventures or whether it's to sell the company or bring in new investors or just hand it down to the next generation or, give it to sell it to management, whatever the case may be. run your company at peak performance at all times. And then you will maximize any opportunities that arise.
Well said. So now let's go further into your platform and what you've created. So you told us a little bit about it, but let's go further. So tell us more about corporate value metric and the platform.
Sure. Well, what I learned in my years of turning around companies is that most companies focus on the wrong, what they think are drivers, but they're not really drivers of growth or value creation. They focus typically on revenue and profitability, which sounds logical, except that they often do that at the expense of creating value. In other words, they focus on often chasing revenue and cutting and slashing costs to create additional profitability. But what they don't realize is that revenue and profitability are results. They are not drivers unto themselves. And if they try to make revenue and profitability drivers unto themselves, they will often go about it the wrong way. And very often, instead of creating value, they may actually erode value. The real drivers of value creation are spread throughout the organization in a whole host of qualitative factors that actually lead to revenue growth and profitability as the output, as the results. They don't realize that creating value in a company is just like creating a new product. It can be manufactured just like a tangible product can be manufactured. But it takes the same kind of focus and discipline to create value in a company that it takes to, say, manufacture a tangible product. You have to design and engineer a process. You have to have all the right ingredients. You have to have focus and discipline and continuous improvement. And if you do all of those things and execute properly, the output is the creation of value for the company. If you don't do those correctly, then you often will erode value. And many of my turnaround clients were clients that grew so fast because they were chasing revenue and treating revenue as a direct driver. They grew so fast that they actually imploded because they didn't have the infrastructure to support the growth that they were bringing in on the top line. So what I learned was that the real drivers have to do with a balanced company throughout the whole organization. And we have sort of standard categories that every company needs to have in place, fully developed, and very importantly, in balance with each other in order to reach peak performance and maximum value. And so the platform that we are able to develop it starts with a diagnostic of where the relative strengths and weaknesses are in a company and shines a light on the areas where the company may have blind spots, weaknesses, and those weaknesses are their constraints to growth and creating value. And often they are kind of the natural opposites of where the founders or the executive team are otherwise strong. So if a founder comes from, say, an operations background, the company might be very strong in operations, but it might be weak in some natural opposite areas, like maybe human resources or marketing, other areas, and those become the blind spots of the company. And what we often find is that the management teams and the owners are focused on the areas of the company where they're already strongest. When we ask them where they are applying their resources and energies, it's where the companies are already strongest. And that's not gaining them any additional growth capacity or creating any additional value, because the weakest areas are their constraints. And we need to push them out of their comfort zone, focus on the weakest areas first, bring those up to be on par with their strengths, and then grow the company all in unison by building quality across the board in an even manner. And so that's what our platform does, is it diagnoses where the company's strengths and weaknesses are, and then lays out a roadmap for where they should be applying resources, in what sequence, in what levels of intensity, and so forth to get the company to maximum value. And then the platform also measures the impact that the company has made in terms of value creation. So we can actually calculate the intrinsic value of the business and show a company in advance, before they commit any resources or time, we can show them how much value they will create in their company if they follow this program the way the roadmap is laid out.
Tell me a little bit about the user experience. So what it takes to and I don't mean the implementation side, because obviously we could spend days on that, and every company is going to be a little bit different based on the output of what the results are, I should say, of the input they put in, right? But tell me a little bit about about just the user experience and what it looks like for a company to get on the platform and to start driving benefit from it.
Sure. Well, it's a software. It's a SaaS-based platform. It's called the Value Opportunity Profile. And a company could either use the software on their own and go through the diagnostic process on their own, or they could engage a facilitator who is trained in doing this kind of work as a specialist, who could facilitate the upfront diagnostic and the development of the roadmap with and for the company. But basically, depending on the size of the company, because the platform is scalable up for larger or smaller companies. Smaller companies, it's just a sort of a lighter touch, doesn't go as deep. The larger the company, the deeper the system goes in terms of the diagnostic aspects. But it can take anywhere from a couple hours to a full day to sit with the management team all together and go through the diagnostic process. And essentially, it's a self-assessment. It's a guided self-assessment by the management team where they are asked how well developed they are in a whole host of different categories against theoretical best practice standards. And the best practice standards are laid out in the guidance that's embedded inside the software, so they can understand how to calibrate their answers. Their answers are typically on a scale of 0 to 10, where a 10 would mean we're perfect. And so they go through and answer all of these questions, and then every category gets a sort of a score that identifies the level of quality or the level of maturity of the company in that particular category, and it all rolls up to be an overall level of quality on the company as well. And then there's a financial module where they input their historical and any projected financials that they have, summary level financials. And the combination of the qualitative diagnostic and the financial information generates a current intrinsic value of the company. And the roadmap then lays out how much value they would capture or create if they followed all of the recommended initiatives. So it's a very efficient process. It's something that in my turnaround career, it used to take weeks to go through that kind of a process, and we did that a lot for private equity firms and bank workout groups. But now the whole diagnostic process takes management about upwards of a couple hours to a day to go through. And then, of course, the implementation part of it, as you mentioned, that sometimes can take years to go and implement everything that they need to do. It's sort of a lifestyle change for how they think about running their company. It's not a quick fix, magic wand or anything. It's a different perspective on how you operate your company and how you create the focus and discipline needed to create the most value.
And so tell me about a little bit more about the certified growth advisors and what that entails, because I think it's really interesting, your model overall. For one, if you're do-it-yourselfer and you have the resources and you have the people and you have all that in place, great. But if you don't, or even if you do, but you want somebody that's certified and that already understands the value opportunity profile and the value proposition just overall of the platform, then you can have that person that kind of walks you through and guides you through that, so you're not stuck with questions, so to speak. So tell us a little bit more about the certified growth advisors route.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So when we first launched the software, we got an enormous response of advisors around the country and now outside the country who wanted to use the software with their clients, and that was great. But then usually after a couple months of them using the software with their clients, they were coming back to us asking for additional training because they said, okay, this is great. We generated this great roadmap for our clients, but now they want us to help them implement. And, you know, we're experts in sort of a niche area. We don't know how to implement this whole roadmap in other areas of the company where we don't have the expertise. And in a lot of cases, we don't even know how to have the conversation because we're not knowledgeable enough about best practices in these other areas of the company. And so they were asking us for training. Well, after providing, you know, smaller modules of training, eventually that morphed into a 5-day, very rigorous training and certification program called the Certified Value Growth Advisor, CVGA. And we have now had that program for 6 years. We run it a couple times a year. And it's a very rigorous 5-day program that where we have about 9 or 10 different subject matter experts come in and present different modules on what best practices look like in a company across all the various functional areas of any typical company. And so the people who attend the program learn, they at least learn the baseline best practices of a company across all of these functional areas, enough so that they can have the conversations with their clients, enough so that they can identify the strengths and weaknesses with the confidence of knowing that they're getting it right or reasonably right. And then they have enough knowledge to know, well, are these issues that I can help resolve myself or give direction myself, or are they bigger problems where I need to sort of call in a different subject matter expert to come in and really dig in more deeply and help the company fix certain areas of their business. And if that's the case, they act as the kind of the quarterback. So they're bringing in outside resources at the right time, at the right level of intensity to focus on the right, exactly the right topics. So everybody works from the same game plan. So the week-long training program goes through all of that kind of process, all of the underlying qualitative attributes of any company, and how the diagnostic aspects work and how the road mapping process works. It's been a terrific program. We now have CVGAs across 5 countries. So the program has been gaining in popularity, and we get great references and referrals and ratings and so forth. So.
Yeah, I can see it, and just going through your website and just the way it's laid out, and I mean, it's just really a great job you've done here, and I can tell like that this is, you know, many years of work, and now in a scalable model to where many businesses can benefit from your cumulative knowledge, and all the skills and resources also of the certified growth advisors bring to the table. So I think it's great. It's a great story, and definitely something I'd love to be able to bring to my audience. So that being said, Ken, if somebody is listening to this right now and they want to learn more about how to get involved and how to leverage these resources, I mean, what's the best way for people to follow up and to connect with your team?
The best way would be to go through our website, and there are various icons or buttons that are calls to action to request additional information or contact the team. They can just click any of those buttons and somebody will reach out to them usually within a day or so. If they wanted ever to email me directly, they could do that. My email is in the website as well, but the website is www.corporatevalue.net. My email is the letter K and then my last name, which is SANGINARIO @corporatevalue.net. So either way, they can somebody would reach out to them right away.
Awesome. Well, Ken, it has been really a pleasure having you on the show today and learning more about your background and all the great work that you're doing for businesses out there to help them succeed and thrive and grow. So I think it's awesome. And to the audience, as always, appreciate you tuning in. If this is your first time with Mission Matters, Mission Matters is a platform really designed to bring on entrepreneurs and executives and have them share, why they do what they do, like what gets them fired up, what gets them motivated, how do they add value to the marketplace. And if that's the kind of content that you're interested in listening to, then we definitely encourage you to hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based entrepreneurs, executives, and experts coming on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Ken, really, it has been a pleasure. I'm wishing you much more continued success, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.